So our next speaker is Myroslava Bublyk, Victoria Feshchin, Lennara Bekirova, and Olena Khomulyak. So they carried out research, sustainable development solutions by a statistical analysis of country rankings according to the level of population happiness, Lviv Polytechnic National University. So you are welcome. You can share your screen. We are ready.
Just a moment.
We are ready to listen to your
маю
presentation.
виступ, вибачте, будь ласка. Sorry.
Okay.
Just a moment. I am starting my presentation. Thank you very much for you. For waiting for this convenient situation. Okay, I will start my sharing the screen. And now, so just it's this, and I'll try to screen. Is it my presentation on your
Yeah,
screen?
we can see it. We can see it.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce our research about the sustainable development by statistical analysis of country ranking by the population happiness level done by Myroslava Bublyk, Victoria Feshchin, Lennara Bekirova, and Olena Khomulyak. Our agenda is following. Introduction. Here we will talk about main goal, task, etc. Literature review. In this section we will review the relative literature and program structure. Methods. We will talk about the main methods which will be described. Results and discussion. Experiments conducted would be shown and interpreted with this block. It will be applied to the annual Gallup World Survey, call it the World Happiness Report. It is based on a variety of data and the sources of which is unique annual survey for the sector of life as a happiness countries. The ranking of happiness countries take into account indicator of well-being such as gross domestic products per capita, life expectations, civil liberation, sense of security and convenience in the future, family establish employment guarantee, corruption, and indirect indicator of social sausage such as level of trust, generosity. The purpose. It's in this paper we will try to get a little close to explore the data connect in the World Happiness Report, find answer to question about the factor of happy development of national and secret of life in the happiness countries. Goals. The main goal of this work is the development as a concept of compiling a ranking of the happiness country based on a relevant statistic and certain trends and patterns that affect the happiness population have been identified. It is proposed to shift the attention of economists to the importance of quality development rather than quantitative. All back to the scenarios. Task. To solve the problem, we need to solve the following subtask. Evaluate the available methods to solving the problem, analyze the advantages and disadvantages of existing solution, and justify the key component of the ranking in countries by the level of happiness of the population. Literature review is studying a further of the problem question for economists. When money is a matter to people, when the majority of the population receive enough and else instead of gross domestic product, that or other factor needs to be assets to understand. It is the economy thriving or not. The author of World Happiness Report 2022 believes that their studies can help government leader, politician, and public figure better understand the needs, the aspiration of their citizens to improve their well-being and development. Methods. Method comparison It's a mathematical model for data processing and formation of a file with numerical data in the text representation format. Data visualization, a graphical presentation with explanation caption under the and the figures. Generalization of the data set, a calculation of the most common statistical indicators such as mode, median, scope, arithmetic means, etc. Smoothing and resmoothing. We use smoothing, resmoothing, and strangeful method with Candela formulas and etc. Results and discussion. In the research of the country ranking of the population happiness level, we considered the data which are created to help government, leader, political, and public figures better understand the need and aspiration of their citizens to improve their well-being and development. The ranking of the well-happiness countries take into account such indicator of well-being as gross domestic per capita, life expectation, civil liberties, and sense of the security of convenience in future, family stability, employment guarantee, corruption, and indirect indicator of society such as level of trust and generosity. Now you can see only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 categories, but more is so complicated to show on this figure, but it's a very important characteristic. Graphical presentation of the economy gross domestic product per capita and happiness score is down here in the figures. It is in the Cartesian coordinate on the left side, and on the right side it is a polar coordinate system. The table with Candle formulas implements simple moving average because for the smoothing interval in the middle of the time series, which corresponding to the middle column of the table, all weighting are equal 1. The rest of linear smoothing of the economy at the W equal 5 for the different countries ranked by the population happiness level is shown on this figure. Resmoothing with the Candle formula using the dimension of the smoothing interval at W equal 3 from 3 to 15 are presented in the figures. Repeated simple Candle's formula has been used the resmoothing result at W equal 15 for the different countries ranked by the population happiness level. Our result. Describing the result, as we can see, we use the basic method of visualization, graphical display, and the primary statistical processing of numerical data, approximation, simplification of initial data of country ranking by the population happiness level by the method of linear smoothing is carried out. First approach, the ranking of the happiness countries should take into account welfare indicators such as gross domestic product per capita, life expectancy, civil liberties, security, and confidence in the future, family stability, employment guarantee, corruption, and indirect indicators of society such as trust, generosity. The tender of transition of the guarantee indicator of the quality among those interest, happiness, and the well-being to the population will consider. Now for the conclusion. And they are the differences in the construction of graphic Cartesian and polar coordinate system, quantitative characteristic and described statistical were determined. Approximation, stimulation, or initialization data of the country ranking by the population happiness level by the method of the linear smoothing is carry out the tendency of transition of a quantitative indicator to qualitative among those influence happiness and well-being of the population is constructed. The data obtained by smoothing can be used to assess whether the economy is development successful. Thank you for your attention.
Dear participants, thank you for your presentation. So dear participants, do we have any questions to the speaker? So if there are no questions, we will continue. So the next research is carried out by Myroslava Bublyk, Ivan Klymus, Bohdan Tsonev, and Vladyslav Zathei, comparative analysis of the caloric performance of products for people with cardiovascular disease, Lviv Polytechnic National University. So you will present here.
Yes,
Thank you.
but this is not the next. Oh, it's better. And I'm starting. Ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce our research on the topic of comparative analysis of the caloric performance of the product for people with cardiovascular disease, done by Myroslava Bublyk, Ivan Klymus, Bohdan Tsonev, Vladyslav Zathei. All is from Lviv Polytechnic National University. Actuality. The problem of the rapid spread of the cardiovascular disease among the world population is often associated with high-calorie diet with humans perfect. The urgency of this problem is growing every year as evidenced by data from the World Health Organization, both of the growing number of overweighting people and the highest mortality worldwide due to cardiovascular disease. An unresourceable problem is choosing the proper diet to improve the health of any person is establishing data on the caloric content of various foods. To conduct a comparative analysis of the caloric content of food which will allow people who suffer from cardiovascular disease or an only way to evaluate their diet and choose the proper diet to improve their health, especially with heart disease, to promote great availability of data on the caloric content of foods, to improve the effectiveness of their perception of stakeholders, to establish the relation between the category of the products and its caloric content, propose an approach to the formation of a diet based on the caloric content of food for people with cardiovascular disease. Experiment and results. The data set consists of data on the caloric content of food which is presented in the figure. On the left side is Cartesian system coordinate. On the right side of this slide, you can see the polar system coordinate. The constructed product, we now present the histogram and the histogram of distribution of average caloric by this caloric through the different range. For estimating, we use the accumulate. The linear smoothing is presented in this slide. This figure presented the linear smoothing for the W equals 3, 5, and 2, 15. Resmoothing with Campbell formulas is presented for the parameter W equal from 3 to 15. The result of exponential smoothing at LA from 0.1 to 0.2 is presented in this figure, and now we can get the conclusion. The problem of proper nutrition is directly related to the quality of food and its caloric content. Many people worldwide suffer from cardiovascular disease, which are often caused by being overweight. The comparative analysis of indicator of the caloric content of foodstuff using various methods of the analysis of data is carried out. The method of moving average, weighted moving average, linear smoothing, repeated linear smoothing, and exponential smoothing of data on the nutritional value of product consumed by people with cardiovascular disease are used. The relationship between the product category and its caloric content has been established. As a result of research of the caloric content of food, the relationship between the category of product and its caloric content will allow patients suffering from cardiovascular disease or are overweight to assess their diet and choose the proper diet to improve their health. An approach to the formulation of a diet based on the caloric content of food for people with cardiovascular disease has been proposed, which, with great availability of data on the caloric content of food, improves the efficiency of selected and improved food and the number of diet of different populations. Comparative analysis of the caloric content of foods in the diet of patients with cardiovascular disease is designed to help both physician and patient proper assess their diet and choose a diet that meets the characteristic of the disease, body conditions, and doctor recommendation. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much for your presentation. So do we have any questions to the presenter? So if no, we will proceed with the next research carried out by Myroslava Bublyk and Natalia Vlasova, intelligent analysis of the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic and on juvenile drug use and proliferation, Lviv Polytechnic National University.
Thank you. I'm starting my sharing screen, and now I show my presentation. Okay, our research is on this named topic, and the main purpose of the study is to investigate the dependence of the drug rate on COVID-19 and how changed it health affects the level of drug used by minors. Research objectives are to apply the basic visualization method, graphical display, and primary statistical processing of numerical data representation by a time series sample, to coverage of trend in behavior of drug use the minors drugging, the lockdown of the application of basic method of coverage of behavioral trend, and they represent the nature of the trend to use, using the method of smoothing time series and presenting the result using Excel spreadsheet. To use the method of correlation analysis of experimental data presented by time sequence at the cluster analysis method. The focus group is juveniles in the United States, and there has been a sharp change in drug mortality for this group in the United States during quarantine. The change in the death rate from the drugs among the minor has been identified, and the impact of drug prohibition and legalization on the USA economy in general and on the level of drug use in particular has been studied. Change in the drug business environmental caused by the quarantine during the COVID-19 pandemic are analyzed. Methods. The following methods were used to solve the task: data and information connection, convert data to access format, descriptive statistical of data, visualization, smoothing according to Candela formulas, a simple moving average, use the interval at W equal from 2 to 6, smoothing according to formulas from Pollard, exponential smoothing value of A equal 0.1 to 0.3, median smoothing using the intervals at W equal to from 2 to 6, and at the results cluster data analysis. Experimental result is presented on this in this figure. On the left side, we have the cumulate for marijuana, and the first is presented in polar coordinate. Second is presented in coordinate. As the experimental results very important to indicate the descriptive statistic. Description statistic is very informative, and now we can see that we investigate about 22 amount and some different account. Histograms and cumulate are shown in this figure. Now we can see how is correlate between this histogram and cumulate. Using the smoothing method, especially median smooth and turning point criteria is shown in this figure. In the next slide, you can see the result of moving average. It is shown in these figures for the different W. First is equal W3, next 5, and this at some period. Exponential smoothing is the same result, and for the cluster analysis, which is shown in this table, we use Myroslava table object properties. Now it's only the part of this result, but we use for age period from 12 to 15, from 15 to 18, from 18 to 21. The results of cluster analysis we can get as 4 different clusters where juveniles have some problem with drugs. And the result of this data set study using this descriptive statistic, data visualization, smoothing data, correlation, and cluster analysis suggests that drugs use as subsequence overdose remain critical and challenging for USA public health. Variation and trend in drug overdose mortality depend on the population of drug in different generations. A comparison of drug use trend about different generation of young people reveal the generation of baby boomers suffer more than other generation, of them being established that middle age from 16 to 21 who have started using drugs before quarantine, it was caused, will continue to use drugs after quarantine. It will be facilitated by active communication and attending parties. The risk of increasing level of violence and aggression in society increases, and the likelihood of overdose increases. Recommendations are proposed to increase the attention to the state and its implementation of the additional control measures, including conducting political and education measures among adolescents to prevent drugs use and reduce the popularity of drug use of each succeeding generation. It will positively benefit young people as drug preventing, and it will be help reduce drug mortality in the United States. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you for your extensive research. So, dear participants, are there any questions to the speaker? If no, I have one question. So what will be the prospects of your future research in this sphere?
For future, I hope it will be in Ukraine, because I hope we can get the data sets with Ukraine situation in the Russian-Ukrainian war. And we will investigate this problem.
Thank you. Thank you. So the next speakers, I cannot see them for now because we are a little bit faster than expected. So Vladyslava Levchenko, Hanna Sitter, Oleg Vetrov, and Serhiy Gladilo ways to create a synonymizer of the Ukrainian language. Do we have the presenter? Not now, so maybe we will just stop